The wedding hall was full of laughter, music, and bright lights. Families sat around large round tables covered with white cloth. Children ran between the chairs while adults clapped to the rhythm of the music. Everyone seemed happy. Everyone, except a little boy who sat quietly beside his mother. The mother smiled politely at relatives passing by, but her son's small hand kept gripping her arm tightly. He was only 5 years old, dressed in a tiny black suit and bow tie. His big eyes looked restless, moving again and again toward the floor. She noticed his strange behavior, but she thought it was only nervousness. Weddings could feel big and noisy for a child. Suddenly, the boy leaned closer to her. His little voice was trembling as he whispered, "Mom, let's go home." "Right now." The mother turned her head quickly. His tone was not like a normal child's complaint. It was serious, almost fearful. She bent down a little and asked softly, "What's wrong, sweetheart? Why do you want to leave?" He did not look at her. Instead, his eyes stayed fixed on the tablecloth. His lips trembled. "You didn't look under the table, did you?" he whispered again. A chill ran down the mother's spine. She forced a smile and tried to calm him. "Under the table? What do you mean?" The boy's hand shook as he clutched hers harder. "Don't look, Mom, they'll know you saw them," he said, almost crying. The mother felt confused. Her heartbeat grew faster. She slowly moved her hand, intending to lift the edge of the white cloth hanging over the table. Part of her mind told her it was nothing. Maybe her son was imagining things. Maybe it was just shadows. But another part of her, a deeper instinct, told her something was very wrong. Her fingers touched the fabric. She took a long breath and bent down carefully, pulling the cloth aside just a little. The hall around her was still noisy with music. Icy and clapping, but in that moment, everything seemed silent in her ears. She lowered her head further and peeked into the darkness below. Her eyes froze. There, under the table, she saw something impossible. 2 glowing shapes were watching her from the shadows. They were not reflections, not lights from the wedding hall. They were eyes, large, unblinking, and shining with a strange color. The rest of the figures were hidden in the dark, but she could see a faint movement, like something breathing, waiting, hiding right beneath where she and her son sat. Her throat tightened. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Her body felt locked in place. The boy pressed his face into her arm. "I told you," he whispered again. "They are under the table." Slowly, she reached for his small hand and held it tightly. Her face was pale, her heart beating like a drum. She knew they had to leave, but she also knew that standing up too quickly might draw attention from whatever was hiding down there. She swallowed hard, forced her legs to move, and prepared to stand. The wedding music played on, but for her, the world had already changed. The mother's fingers trembled as she held her son's hand. Her breath came in short, uneven pulls. The glowing eyes under the table had vanished the second she blinked, but her memory of them was sharp and clear. They were real. She knew what she saw. Slowly, she sat upright again, forcing her face to remain calm. All around her, people laughed, clapped, and ate as if nothing strange was happening. Her sister, the bride, was dancing with her new husband. Glasses clinked in celebration. Nobody noticed that one woman and her son were frozen in fear. The boy leaned closer, whispering with a shaky voice. "They know you saw them, Mom. They don't like it." His words cut through her like ice. She forced herself to smile, nodding at a passing guest. But inside, her mind raced. Who were they? And what did they want? She dared to glance down again, but this time the space beneath the table was empty. Nothing but shoes, chair legs, and shadows. For a moment, she felt foolish. Maybe her son's imagination had infected her own thoughts. Maybe she had been tired, and her eyes tricked her, but then it happened again. From the corner of her eye, she caught movement, fast, like a flash of silver sliding between the tables. She turned her head quickly, but once more there was nothing there. Her pulse hammered harder, her son's grip tightened around her wrist. Don't look too long, he whispered. If you do, they'll come closer. A wave of cold air brushed against her ankle, even though the room was warm with dancing bodies and glowing lights. Her shoulders stiffened. She tried to move her foot back, but it was too late. Something had touched her. It was faint, but it was real, a light brush against her skin, like cold fingers dragging softly. She gasped and jerked her leg away. The boy whimpered and buried his face into her side. She wanted to stand up and run, but her instinct told her that sudden movement would draw attention. Instead, she stayed seated, her face pale, her body rigid. She forced her lips into a weak smile, pretending to listen to a guest who had stopped at their table. But her ears weren't hearing words anymore. Her focus was on the silence below. Then it happened. The cloth around the table moved slightly, as if someone was crawling underneath. Her heart nearly stopped. She bent her head down again, slower this time, her breath heavy. She lifted the cloth just a little, enough to peek inside, and there it was. Two eyes. Not glowing this time, but clear and strange, like glass reflecting light. They blinked. She saw skin, gray, smooth, stretched tight over a shape that was not human. Its hand pressed lightly against the carpet, fingers too long, bending the wrong way. The thing was looking at her, studying her, waiting. She froze. The boy whispered again, almost too softly to hear, "It wants you to see it. But don't let it know you're afraid." Her lips parted. She wanted to scream, to run, to do anything, but her body wouldn't move. The eyes blinked again, and then, in a heartbeat, they were gone. The music in the hall grew louder, but to the mother it sounded distant, like a fading echo. Her skin still burned from where that strange hand had brushed against her leg. She tried to convince herself that maybe it was only her imagination, maybe a shadow, maybe a trick of the lights. But deep inside, she knew the truth. Something unnatural was here. Her son clung to her side, his face hidden against her dress. His small voice shook as he whispered, "They don't want you to know, Mom. You weren't supposed to see them." She smoothed his hair gently, trying to calm him, but her own hands were shaking. She forced herself to look around. Relatives were laughing, plates of food were being served, children were running. Nobody else noticed anything strange. Was she the only one who felt the cold breeze? The only one who saw those eyes? She leaned down, lowering her head near her son's ear. "What do you mean?" she whispered back. "What are they?" The boy lifted his face slowly. His eyes were wide and serious, far too serious for a 5-year-old child. "They've been here all night. Hiding under the tables, hiding in the shadows. They look at people, and sometimes people don't come back." Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe he was imagining things, but the fear in his voice was too real. Suddenly, the cloth of their table shifted again. Only a small movement, but enough to make her blood run cold. She dared not look down. Not this time. Instead, she kept her eyes straight ahead, pretending nothing had happened. Then she felt it. Something touched her leg again. Not soft this time, firmer, like a hand trying to hold her still. She jerked slightly in her chair, gasping for air. Her son whispered quickly, "Don't scream, Mom. If you scream, they will know." She clamped her lips shut, her body stiff. She wanted to get up, but her legs refused to move. The sound of laughter and music swirled around her, but it all felt unreal. She could hear her heartbeat louder than the drums, louder than the voices. Then she felt a breath. Cold. Close. Against her ankle, her eyes widened, but she didn't move. She knew if she looked, if she gave them attention, it would be worse. She bit her lip hard, trying to stay still, and then, just as suddenly as it came, the cold sensation vanished. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. Maybe it was gone. Maybe it was over, but her son shook his head. "That was a warning," he whispered. His voice was almost broken. "They're telling you not to try again." Her mind spun. A warning? What did they want from her? Why her? Why tonight, of all nights? The mother glanced toward the dance floor where her sister spun in her white wedding dress, smiling with joy. Everything looked normal. Perfect. Beautiful, but beneath that perfect picture, something hidden was moving. Watching. Waiting. The mother knew one thing now. This was not her imagination. The aliens were real, and they had just given her their first warning. The mother tried to steady her breathing. The warning had shaken her deeply, but she could not sit frozen forever. She forced herself to look away from the table, to look at the people around her. At first, everything looked normal. Relatives were laughing, glasses were raised for toasts, children were still running between chairs. The bride and groom danced in the center, surrounded by clapping hands and cheering voices, but the longer she looked, the more wrong things began to feel. A man at the far table lifted his glass to drink. For a brief second, when the light from the chandelier touched his face, his eyes reflected, not like normal eyes, but like smooth glass. The glow vanished when he blinked, but she had seen it. Her chest grew tight. She turned her head quickly, scanning the crowd. Another woman laughed too loudly, her mouth opening wider than natural, the smile stretching a little too far before snapping back. Nobody else noticed. The mother's stomach dropped. These were not only hiding under tables. Some of them were sitting right here, pretending to be human. She whispered to her son, her voice shaking, "Are they in the crowd too?" The boy nodded without looking up. They wear faces. But their eyes still glow if you watch carefully. Her skin prickled. She looked again. Across the room, a man danced stiffly, his movements jerky, not natural. Another guest clapped out of rhythm, repeating the same motion again and again, like a broken puppet. She quickly looked away, afraid they would notice her watching. Her son's small hand pressed harder into hers. "Don't stare, Mom," he whispered. "If they know you see them, they'll get closer." The lights above flickered suddenly. The hall dimmed for just 2 seconds. 2 seconds that changed everything. In that brief flicker, faces shifted. The woman who had been laughing, her jaw stretched long, her skin gray and thin. The man with the glass, his eyes fully glowing, no disguise left. Several guests around the tables turned their heads at the same time, staring straight at the mother and her son, then the lights steadied again. Music continued. Guests were smiling once more, pretending to be human again, but the mother knew. She knew now without doubt. The wedding was not full of friends and family. It was full of watchers. Her heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to grab her son and run, but the doors at the back of the hall looked far away. Too many faces stood between them and the exit. Faces that might not be faces at all. Her son's voice trembled. "They don't want anyone to leave. That's why the doors are closed." The mother glanced over. He was right. The doors, wide open a moment ago, now stood firmly shut. No one else seemed to notice, but she did. She swallowed hard, fear rising like fire in her chest. The aliens were no longer hiding under the tables, they were standing in plain sight. The mother's eyes locked on the doors. They were closed now, heavy and tall, almost like part of the wall itself. Nobody else noticed. Guests laughed and clapped, lost in celebration. But she knew. The doors had been shut on purpose. Her son tugged her sleeve. "Mom, we can't stay. They're waiting." She squeezed his hand. "Stay close to me," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but her steps were firm as she stood up slowly. She forced her lips into a smile, pretending to be calm, pretending nothing was wrong. No one seemed to care as she pushed her chair back. Plates clinked, people cheered for the dancing couple. For a moment, she thought maybe she could slip out quietly. She guided her son toward the back of the hall, weaving between tables. Her heart raced faster with every step. The doors were closer now. Just a little more. Just a little further, then someone moved in front of them. A tall man in a gray suit stepped out from the crowd, blocking their path. He looked ordinary at first, sharp jaw, friendly smile. But when he leaned closer, the smile stretched wider than human. Too wide, leaving so soon? He asked, his voice soft but strange, like two voices speaking at once. The mother froze. Her son clung to her leg, hiding his face. She forced herself to answer, "My boy is tired. I'm just taking him home." The man's glassy eyes flickered. His head tilted slightly, like a puppet testing its strings. "Home," he repeated. "But this is home now. You should stay." Her throat tightened. She nodded quickly, pretending to agree, but then tried to step around him. He moved again, blocking her way. Another guest appeared behind him, then another. Their faces looked human, but their movements were stiff, too perfect. They formed a loose wall between her and the doors. Panic rose inside her chest. She turned her head quickly, searching for another exit. Windows, H. Always, anything. But all the paths seemed full of smiling faces. Her son whispered into her dress. "Don't run, Mom. If you run, they'll chase us." She swallowed hard, her eyes darting left and right. The crowd was closing in, slow but certain, like wolves circling prey. The tall man leaned closer. His smile stretched again, showing too many teeth. "You saw what you shouldn't have," he whispered. "And now you can't leave." The mother pulled her son close, wrapping her arms around him. Her legs trembled, but her voice came out steady. "We are leaving," she said firmly. The man's head tilted again, unnaturally far this time, like his neck had no bones. His voice came deeper, darker. "Then try." At that moment, the chandeliers above flickered again. The light dimmed, shadows stretched, and for 1 second, the mask slipped. Their faces changed. Skin turned gray and thin. Eyes glowed with inhuman light. Mouths opened wide, too wide, teeth glistening sharp. The mother gasped, stepping back in terror. Her son's small hands clutched her tighter. When the light steadied, the guests were smiling again, pretending to be human. But the warning was clear, they would not let her escape. The mother's chest heaved as she held her son tightly. The crowd of smiling faces stood all around them, too still, too quiet, waiting. The music from the band continued, but it sounded wrong now, like a recording that was slightly broken. Every beat dragged longer than it should, every note stretched too thin. Her son lifted his head. His small face was pale, but his eyes were calm. He looked at her with a seriousness that no child should have. "Mom," he whispered, "they already chose me." Her heart nearly stopped. She bent low, whispering quickly, "What do you mean? Who chose you?" "The Watchers," he said simply. His eyes flicked toward the guests who weren't really guests. "They can't see each other the way we do." "But I can. And now, so can you." The mother shook her head, refusing to believe. "No, you're just a boy. They can't choose you for anything." But her son only stared back, his little voice calm. "That's why they came here. Not for the wedding. Not for the people. They came because of me." The chandeliers flickered again. The crowd of guests stopped clapping and froze in place. Every face turned slowly toward the mother and her son. Dozens of glowing eyes stared at them at once. The tall man in the gray suit stepped forward. His disguise slipped as he moved. His skin rippled, his jawline stretched. For the first time, he spoke without pretending to be human. His voice was deep and layered, like many voices echoing together. "The child sees beyond the veil," he said. "Few humans do. He is not ordinary. He belongs with us." The mother shook her head furiously. "No! He's just a boy. He's my son. You can't have him." The creature tilted his head, glassy eyes glowing brighter. "He already belongs to us. You only delayed the moment. But tonight, the veil broke for you as well. Now you see what he sees. Now you know the truth. Her knees weakened, but she held her son tighter. Why us? Why him? The creature's mouth stretched unnaturally wide, almost into a smile. Some are born with the sight. Some are not. He is the doorway. Through him we remain. Through him we enter your world. The mother's heart pounded. She looked around. The guests were still frozen, watching silently, their faces flickering between human and alien. Even the bride and groom stood still now, their smiles stiff, their eyes glowing faintly. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered to her son, "We have to leave. We can't let them take you." The boy's voice was soft, almost resigned. "But, Mom, what if leaving isn't possible anymore?" The tall creature stepped closer, his shadow falling over them. His many voices whispered as one, "You will come with us. Or you will never leave this place at all." The wedding hall no longer felt real. The music played, but it was hollow, like echoes in an empty tunnel. The guests stood frozen, their faces flickering between human masks and alien forms. Every glowing eye was locked on the mother and her son. She clutched the boy tightly against her chest. Her voice was low, broken, but firm. "You can't take him. He's mine." The tall creature in the gray suit stepped closer. His skin rippled again, his human shape stretching like clay. When he spoke, the sound was deep and layered, dozens of voices speaking together. "He was never only yours. He is one of us. You were chosen to see so you could decide. Stay and surrender him, or leave with him into the dark." Her heart pounded. "What does that mean?" she whispered. The creature tilted his head unnaturally, bones cracking, eyes glowing brighter. "If you stay, you will forget tonight. The boy will vanish, but you will remember nothing. You will go back to your life. If you resist, we will take you both to the place beyond the veil. And you will never return." The mother's knees trembled. The thought of losing her son tore her apart, but the idea of walking into the unknown with these monsters was worse. She looked down at him, her little boy staring back at her with calm, wide eyes. "Mom," he whispered, "don't be afraid. I already saw this moment. I knew it would come." Her breath caught. "What do you mean you saw it?" He pressed his small hand against hers. "They showed me. I can see things before they happen. That's why they want me. But I don't want to go with them. I want to stay with you." Tears stung her eyes. The choice was crushing her chest. The creatures around them moved closer, their disguises slipping. Gray skin. Long fingers. Glowing eyes. Mouth stretching wide with teeth sharp and endless. They circled her, waiting for her decision. The tall one leaned down, his many voices whispering, "Choose." The mother's heart screamed. She pulled her son closer and whispered in his ear, "Hold on to me. No matter what happens, don't let go." Then, with a sudden burst of courage, she turned and ran. The creatures shrieked, their voices shaking the hall. Lights exploded, chandeliers swung wildly. The guests, human or not, blurred as the room twisted like melting glass. The mother ran blindly toward the doors, clutching her boy. The ground seemed to vanish beneath her feet. Darkness swallowed the hall. For a moment, she thought she was falling forever. Then silence. She opened her eyes. She was outside, standing under the night sky. The wedding hall behind her was gone, completely gone, as if it had never existed. Her son was still in her arms, breathing fast but safe. As he looked up at her, his small voice trembling but steady. "See, Mom? You chose the right way." She hugged him tightly, afraid to ever let go. But deep inside, she knew this wasn't the end, because somewhere in the shadows, beyond the veil, the Watchers were still waiting, and they would never stop looking for him.